So our topic today, organizing stuff. How they organize data. It lead down many different.
Micah, your sound's cutting in and out for me.
Well, I'll get working on that and we'll introduce John here shortly. I'm so sorry. I'm not in my normal office today. Anyway, if someone else wants to take over, if my sound's really bad, please feel free. Encourage you to discuss anything and ask questions. And as always, you can questions in the chat. We'll follow that and speak up if you need to. So first up is going to be John DeGroot with the GeoTree Center at UNI, and we'll just kind of let you take it from here, John.
You're muted, John. John, you're muted.
Can't even hear us.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
And tell me if you see my screen here in a moment. See the screen or not? You guys hear me now?
Yes, hear you, but no screen.
No screen.
Now we have screen.
Okay. I'm sorry about this. I'm not sure what you guys see and what I see. You still see my PowerPoint here? All right. So
Yes.
Again, I started, I guess I'll go again. Just going to briefly talk about UNI and ArcGIS Online, not try to do any demos or anything. So from my perspective, I have multiple kind of jobs here. I teach some classes in geography, and then I manage the GeoTree Center. And part of our mission of the GeoTree Center is to support kind of all things geospatial technologies at UNI. So I guess, when ArcGIS Online started coming online, which was when I don't even remember, I guess I became kind of the primary administrator here. There are several other faculty that have administrative privileges in IT, but I think I'm probably the one that does the most regarding it, AGOL here. So I think, Josh in a moment or later will give maybe some better insight from the university perspective. I think he's probably following best practices better than I am, but it's mainly about time. I haven't gotten the time to really dedicate to being as systematic about management of our AGOL as I'd like. So, we definitely, like, membership in our organization has grown quite a lot in the last couple of years, especially. I think we've been aided a lot, or at least it makes it easier for us with, some of the way Esri has done our licensing at a statewide level. And again, Josh understands this better than I. For educational licensing, we really, a few years ago, got quite a bit more access to resources that has alleviated maybe some of the potential headaches. So we get lots of credits, we get, lots of licensing, basically, what Esri calls functionally unlimited. So, for example, like a few years ago, it was more effort to decide who's getting what kind of roles and things like that. And also it's about credit limitations and things. So for example, years and years ago, I had a student geocode like 1 million records or more. And that used a whole lot of credits because I hadn't had credit limitations on everybody, or it was more of an ad hoc basis. Now we can set that all at once. So funny thing about that student is they didn't even need to geocode that table because it already had the latitude and longitude and some sort of projected coordinates in it already. So it's kind of a waste. But as of now, we have 631 named users. That doesn't mean they're all active. That's over basically all time. We basically get students coming through a lot of our geography classes, all our GIS courses. We have a digital earth, which is kind of a liberal arts core course that a lot of students take that they do a lot of story maps and things. So basically add all these kind of people that come through. We also have a big AmeriCorps program, Green Iowa AmeriCorps based here, that all of the people that come through that, or at least a lot of them, want to join our AGUL organization, and they use things like Collector and Survey 1, 2, 3 and things. So we've added probably a few hundred people in just the last 2 or 3 years, I would say. And I've been trying to make available, or make people aware of what we have available through Esri licensing here. So I go out and talk to different departments and colleges and things to try to make them aware. For example, like story maps have become popular across quite a few different classes or departments on campus. From a management of the whole organization, I think we leave a lot to be desired. I'd like to spend more time maybe this summer getting it in better shape. So I'm going to let Josh and others, Patrick, talk about a well-organized organization. I do a little bit with getting basic reporting data from our organization using the ArcGIS API for Python, which I also at least introduce in my GIS programming class. So things like accessing content or publishing data using scripting to publish data. And just like pulling out things like user information. So I was doing that yesterday, but that's really all I had. I think, again, at UNI, we need to actually work with organizing things a little bit better, but it's really easy to set up defaults and things. So adding members, especially in the last couple of years, has gotten a lot easier and more systematic. So basically that is all I have. I do have to go to another meeting here in a few minutes, so I'm going to stop sharing, hopefully. And
You did stop.
okay. Sorry about that. Technical
Thanks, John. Let's move and transition. Patrick, do you think you are ready to show your stuff? Thanks, John, for jumping in here in the beginning.
Thanks, John. I don't have anything as formal as John to talk about. I think just some key things I want to talk about is we have about 50, 60 users at the state level. So not definitely not as large of a group that I have to deal with. But just some kind of key things that I've work with is I make use of groups a lot. So organizing users into groups, generally that's by departmental. There are some other special groups as well, but that's where I start with is using groups. The other thing that is I started doing a long time ago with using the GeoJob or GeoJob extension is actually tagging users. It's a hidden thing that's not exposed directly in ArcGIS Online. But if you think of what ArcGIS Online is, it's just a group of objects, whether that object is a file, a feature layer, some sort of content. A user is just an object. A group is just an object. And so each of those each of those objects in ArcGIS Online has this concept of tagging and categories. The new thing is they've actually exposed a different type of thing called categories, which shows up in two areas. And I'll show you, share my web browser. Whoops, let's see. I can find this. Just had it here. Okay, so can everybody see that? This is our org.
Yep.
Okay. So there's two kind of things, and and we're in admin mode here. And so if you look at within your organization in the settings, and this is where the first category is. And let's see, items and organization categories over in items. And these are, we just by default, just use the standard categories. And they are basically ISO thematic categories. If you've ever listened to Casey Court or I do a metadata talk or things like that, these are the standard categories. And so I generally encourage people to use these. I manually configure these a lot. What I've started to do is actually going through those groups that I've organized and using the ArcGIS API Python. That is the ArcGIS Online Python interface. Going through and looking at, okay, well, this is a DNR, or this is a DOT. What is the major category that those organizations actually go and what is their business? And I go through all those items and actually automatically tag those feature layers or maps or applications with that tag. So and if it was something that public health, I would automatically tag that with health, or actually categorize that with health, that sort of thing. And so that's helpful. You can run those types of scripts within Jupyter Notebooks if you have ArcGIS Pro installed, Jupyter Notebooks right on your desktop, or you can actually start up a notebook directly within ArcGIS Online, and I can show you where that is in a second. And actually run that on a regular basis, just checking for different things. The second place that ESRI introduced categories, and this was just in the last couple months or so, is actually in the member area. So if you're administrating a member or inviting users, that sort of thing, they've introduced this categories concept in here. And prior to this, I'd been using tags, which again, they're not exposed, but it allows me to behind the scenes and then be able to query using Python all those individuals within for a particular department or organization, or even a sub-organization. So I might tag somebody with public health, behavioral health, or public health, environmental health, or something like that, or another agency. And these are just configurable right here. You can configure your categories. You can add categories. There's actually, so under public safety, we might have the fire marshal's office. And you can actually have a nested set of categories within there. And these, when you look at them, they're basically a URI, or think of it as a nested hierarchy. So that's another way that you can use and organize things. And so if you need, in my case, I don't always know. I work with all of these users, but I don't know that this particular user, I work with them quite a bit. So I know that they are part of the Department of Cultural Affairs. But if there's somebody else at some point would take this over, they wouldn't necessarily know this. And I don't get real complex with our naming because I've recently Okta, which is a authentication system that the state uses. So now people don't have to remember a separate email or sorry, a separate login. They can use their state login to log in. And that kind of brings me to my next point of using the API. What I had to do because we have a limited set of users, I had to sort of move over content from our old from our old users. So if if Barry in this case had an old account, I would move Barry's content, both all the feature layers, applications, data sets, uh, groups that they're associated with, groups that they may own. I move these around from their old user to their new user using the ArcGIS Python API for Python, and actually just reassign groups, created groups, move the content back into different folders that were within there that were being stored under a particular user, and then finally moved all that content over. And so we had about I don't know 4,000 or 5,000 pieces of content of different types that needed to be moved over in that manner. And I never would have done it by hand. I'm way too lazy. So that's more or less what we're doing, or I'm doing, I should say. Some of the other things is if you don't have and have not used the notebook feature, um, I would use notebooks. They're really powerful, not just for organizing like user admin tasks, listing users, trying to find out which users have or have not logged in, which users are part of particular groups. You can export these all to CSV files, that sort of thing. But also things like if you have like say a web service, and that web service may be outputting data, you can actually use this to update feature layers automatically through time, put these on some sort of cron job or some regular time interval, and they'll actually you can manage your data, users, groups, tags, that sort of thing with these notebooks that are actually embedded right in ArcGIS Online. And that's about all I have right now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yes.
Okay, I switched over to my phone. Hopefully
Okay.
that'll be a little better. This is Micah, and I just want to say I have not explored notebooks at all. What would be, do you know of a good resource to get started on that?
Yeah, let me just share this out again.
And if you could put a link in the chat, that would also be fantastic. We'll grab that chat when we're done.
Let's see. So, let's see. The first thing I would do is look at the Python API reference. This will give you a lot of examples, and this is just on the developers.arcgis.com. But it will allow you to access all of, the main GIS class, which hooks into ArcGIS Online, and then things like how do you list items, users, groups, data store. It gets a little bit more complex from there. I know at the sort of the clearinghouse level, you can use this API for not only managing the metadata that's behind your data, which is super important, importing things, importing different parts of your metadata that you may have produced that isn't sometimes automatically scooped up by ArcGIS Online, depending on what type of data you publish, but also managing if you manage any hub sites. whether that be an open data site or some other hub site. During COVID, I know the early stages of COVID, we were updating some web pages in Hub directly with the ArcGIS API, building tables from feature layers, different things like that. But you can, manage any of the hub pages are just a resource or an object that you can inject different HTML in there if you need to on a regular basis. It's fairly easy. I have probably some examples of that someplace floating around. So that would be the first location. I'll send out put links to these or an email later. The other thing is the notebooks. So in notebooks there are let's see. So if you go to new notebook, you just fire up a notebook, and then you can actually, actually that's not the one I wanted. So it's right here under ESRI sample notebooks. And then GitHub also has a number of different things. So it's like administration, deploy automatic notifications. So you could see, something changes, you could do that, or manage and allocate credits. If you wanted to automatically give everybody 50 credits or reset everybody's credits to a certain level. We do this occasionally. Just because of problems that John had mentioned about certain users maybe don't understand the credit systems and the implications of that. But then there's also other things in here, content management, checking content, and other things in here. So this is a really good source of just opening up one of these notebooks and then go ahead and start out and modify from there.
Excellent. Does anyone else have any questions for Patrick?
Is there a notebook for like backing up data at all, or like to like your local drive?
Yeah, you could definitely use the API to pull that down. I actually honestly I've been using ArcGIS Online for 6 years now and never had an issue. I'd actually use ArcGIS Online as your backup rather than as going the other way around. But just because I think the mechanisms behind that is essentially your instance of your ArcGIS Online account is your own, and behind the scenes, all of that, the disaster recovery scripts and everything like that are being backed up. But I honestly have not had any problems in 6 years. Doesn't mean you wouldn't want to do that, but generally I have, if I'm publishing something, I'm either publishing it from ArcGIS Pro directly to the organizational account, or actually to or through a zipped up shapefile that it may have locally anyways. If you have something like Survey 123 or Collector or something like that, you may want to. But like I said, I haven't had any problems because it's probably better backup than I can achieve, honestly.
No, that makes sense. We just have had some users that like, I'll just use an example. Our conservation office, they've got a bunch of, technicians or whatever you want to call them that are planning to do a lot of mobile stuff, like update, parks and trails and all that kind of stuff, but they don't have access to, like our SQL server, SDE, like I don't want to, they don't have access to edit that data. So there's some layers that I have that only exist on ArcGIS Online, and I don't know if that's a mistake or not, but it's just I figured was the easiest way to do that. And then they talk to me, because they're new users, they talk to me about like, they just assume, hey, this is backed up, right? So if I delete a bunch of polygons or points, like we can just pull it off of a backup. And, my answer at that time was no, just don't make a mistake. That's what I suggest. But I was looking at a product that I might purchase that will kind of do that and back it up locally, and something on it, just a scheduled task type of thing. So, but anyway, I don't know, maybe we can talk about that later, but
Yeah, I mean, you could either do it. I mean, you could use like Jupyter notebooks and just time it and pull the feature layer off.
You can just use a general Python script to do it as well and
just
access the
yeah.
API and then set it as a scheduled task.
Yep. Yep. Or if you have access to FME, you can just schedule that on an FME server or FME just on your desktop and pull that data as well. It makes it really easy.
the one thing I like about this particular program, or whatever you want to call it, does like all owners, like even if I don't own the data, it'll back that up too. I don't know if you can do that another way through one of these scripts or not.
As the admin, you can.
Okay.
Joe, looks like Joe just put a link about another option that's not as automated, but it's a way to do it, but it's more of a manual process in the chat. So I thought I'd jump in and just show a couple things from an organization that I worked with last year. I'd like to think of this as a palate cleanser. After what Patrick's talked about, this is going to be completely different. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So one of the things that we have had a lot of questions on is organization of the actual data. So I worked with a couple of cities that have used ArcGIS Online exclusively. So it's kind of like what Matt was talking about. They did not have access to a server. They did not have, everything was basically living in the cloud. And we've had really great success. You know, I'm not worried about the data being deleted, the layers, but I'm more concerned about the fact that people might, make mistakes. But I did want to show this because I had an engineer kind of get me started on this organization. This is really for someone's like content. So this is a very small organization that only has 2 users. It's a small city of La Grande. And I thought this worked out really well, and I just wanted to share it because I've used it both for cities and also for a conservation department. Once again, a small department that only has a couple users, and so that they're just working within their department. But if you can see here, and I'm hoping that you can, I'm going to zoom in just, I'll make it a little bigger. So as you can see here, you can see on the folders, I wish we could create subfolders. That's probably one of my biggest gripes about organizing things in ArcGIS Online, but
You might
can see
be
here,
able to now.
Now? Okay.
I don't remember, but I think you might be able to.
So we just kind of did this numbering system, and it was really great for new users who don't always understand the difference between data, feature layers, maps, applications, just the different kinds of GIS data and other files that you might have in ArcGIS Online. So we wanted a way to organize it for a very new user. So we did a numbering system, and the number really doesn't matter. It's just that way it's not just alphabetized. We can control the order. We wanted them to show up in their folder list on the left side. But here you can see that we created a web apps folder, and a separate one is a maps folder. And it was really important when, we kind of use those phrases a little bit interchangeably. When something's a dashboard, it's easy to know it's an application, but when you have a custom web app that feels like a map to a general user, right? So the difference between the two can be very confusing. And then we would create a data layers folder, and this is where all their feature layers actually lived. And so that gets pretty, this one we have 46 feature layers. So it's a little bit of a grouping, and obviously if we did subfolders, this is a utility, so we'd want to do, maybe water subfolder, sewers subfolder, stormwater subfolder. Then we created a folder called external data sources. And so this is where we're basically have uploaded some map services for our users to use. So this was a nice place, they didn't have to save those web addresses. They didn't have to really understand how a map service worked. If we put it into a folder and gave it a very real name that made sense to them, we did that. And I created another folder and I called it icons. And so I used a lot of images, PNG for some custom symbology or for some image files, I needed a place to put them and publish them and make them public so I could use a web URL. You can see all these icons are shared to the public, so I could use them in my symbology. I created a logos folder, so I had a place to upload logos for the organization. And then I also created an exports folder because our custom web apps had a place for you to export, to download a file, geodatabase or a shapefile if they needed to handle a data request. And then we created an archive data, a place to put the data that we worked with. We didn't really want to delete it. Storage is not a problem. So we wanted it to just kind of live in a place that we knew where it was, but we didn't really want to reference it. So I have found this organization to be extremely flexible and really helps new users understand where the things are. And as we know in the GIS, things get pretty messy pretty fast. So trying to keep a very structured organization really helps people understand as they're learning how to do GIS, let alone how to interact with GIS and ArcGIS Online. So that's all.
Yeah, and I think I do not set up new users that way, but it would actually be really easy to do with that scripting. To set up a new user and then automatically create those folders for them. But it is very, very useful. Just because I think people do have that problem, Micah, of understanding that relationship between if they do upload the data, either the data or the layer definition information, if you're publishing it from ArcGIS, ArcGIS Pro, and then what that feature layer is, the map, the application, and that relationship between all those little pieces. So
yeah, it really took an engineer that I worked with. So she was not a GIS user. She's the one that kind of got me started on it. It really helped having someone who was outside of GIS to really help me think about how a novice user would interact with the data. And I've used it 3 or 4 times now for, obviously these are smaller organizations with few users. So we're not talking enterprise and really large setups, but I have found it to be really successful. And I've gotten really good feedback from it. Simple. So
and I
anyway,
use something similar just to, to reinforce what Mike is saying. But when I talk to users, I just say, hey, put it in your name as this is a feature layer. Name that feature layer that, underscore feature layer if you're having a hard time, or underscore map or underscore application after that name. And that helps them too. Not quite as organized because and we have, I think our agencies, there's a lot of people that prefer to organize it by the project they may have to manage. So like the State Fire Marshal's office is doing something on fireworks stands. They may organize into a folder called fireworks. So it's project based. So they're maybe not as big, but all the things are at least encapsulated within in a particular project folder. Which is another way to organize that as well.
Yeah,
so.
That's kind of how I did it as county, and Matt would agree with this. We have a tendency to always organize data by departments. That's just how we kind of do that. And that's why I would like to see subfolders, because I would like to see more kind of by subject, like you say, fire stands, but then maybe inside those do the subfolders and divide out data from maps, locations. But yeah, using them as in the naming convention, I think is just a great solution for that too. So remember, we need to help all these users. We may be used to GIS mess and what the different kind of components are, but new users are not going to be as well versed. So we have 2 people left to discuss, Josh and Matt, and you guys can virtual thumb wrestle on who wants to jump in.
Matt, why don't you go ahead?
I knew he was going to say that.
So much, Josh.
Well, I've got plenty of stuff. I got a feeling I'll keep talking. So
no,
I figured you get your stuff in first.
Oh, I don't know if I have. I've kind of just been. Let me try to share. See how this works. Oh man, this is so strange. I can't. Can you guys see this okay? This looks so weird to me. I don't see the Zoom window, but can you see the, I guess my organization?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, just kind of reiterate what I think a lot of people said. As far as using groups and folders and tags, tag the data. I just think that a lot of people, you know, you just like to type in one spot where, you know, I want to all my content. I just want to type in something and find it. So yeah, tagging everything is super important. But yeah, like Michael was saying, we kind of do organize our folders by department. Like I have an assessor, auditor, and cemeteries, and some other you know, information. That's just like a watershed real quick. So yeah, this is just where I put, I guess, everything you know, that deals with like a watershed. You know, the web apps, the any maps, anything like that. I'll just kind of popped my organization just because we're not, you know, I guess we don't have as many users as some of you guys. We only have like, just like 30 users or something. So, you know, nothing too crazy, but, you know, we're getting a lot more, I guess, every day, and they're getting more, you know, everyone's using a lot more too. So there's been people creating content that I don't even know, you know, what it is or what it's for, but I guess that could be, you know, something to monitor. So maybe some of these admin tools that Patrick was talking about, I might have to start implementing those. I don't know too much more. I guess just kind of a list of, yeah, we've got a lot of people that are using it. I have everyone as a user type of creator. I don't know. That's just kind of how I've been defaulting. I give some people publisher access that I want to, you know, have a little bit more, you know, a little bit more power, I guess. And I don't understand all the different user types. I know there's like, there's another like field worker, all these other ones, and then there's different roles. So it's just like, I don't know. It gets a little confusing. I understand it's nice to have options though, so we shouldn't complain about not having options, but man, I'm just kind of confused with all the differences and what, you know, and if someone says, "Oh, I just want to view maps, so I just need to view maps," and then a couple months later they're like, "You know, I'd really like the ability to do all this other stuff," once they got a taste of ArcGIS Online. So, you know, I feel like we're always trying to have to, I guess change. So I guess when I get to that point, we'll see if there's any issues with that or whatnot. But yeah, so I just can kind of, I'll just go to groups here too, just kind of show you. I just have a handful of groups, nothing. Well, there's more than I thought, I guess. But some of these are like all this coronavirus stuff. I think that was created when, you know, I tried to use an ESRI solution or something when the pandemic started, but I just haven't done that. So I need to clean it up. So, you know, there's a lot, probably groups and folders and data that that I need to clean up. One thing, I won't spend too much time on this, but it's just something that came up. We have some members that haven't logged in for a while, so I wanted to get rid of them. But I can't because they own like some data, so that, you know, you can't delete a user that owns something. So I need to go and find that stupid thing that they own, which probably isn't anything important. But I know I just Googled it, I think, and there's a solution for that. But
Hey, Matt.
anyway, yeah.
You know, I just recently, and this, I know some of you guys may just roll your eyes, but you know, I usually was the administrator for my sites, and I was the only one who really created content, so I never really worried about it. But you know that on this page right here with the ... you can go in and look at their content from right here.
Oh yeah, so
You can right there, and you can go into what is it? I can't read your
manage items.
Yeah, and
You can also
view
click on
their content.
their name too, and
Mm-hmm.
you should go there. And they just added recently, if you go back to those triple dots, transfer content. You can transfer the ownership to anybody.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
So
Cool.
yeah, I exploring a little bit under the users. I don't know why no one had pointed out to me, and I think a lot of people didn't have content, and I just didn't pay attention. So I was very pleasantly surprised when I found that.
Yeah, Matt, go over there and like click on one of the usernames.
Oh, okay. Let me sorry, let me go to somebody who I know has data.
And then you can see view all their content, view all their groups, view their profile. You can do it from right there.
You can view their content here.
That's their profile.
Well, no, under items.
Yeah.
Oh, items.
Yep.
I was like content. Okay.
So
Nice.
administration has its privileges.
Yeah. And I feel like some of that, you know, when I first started doing this, it just was, you just went for it. You know, there was no, if you did like me, it was just like, no, I didn't map everything out. You know, I'm just not, I don't know. Haha, I didn't map anything out. You know, anyway, sorry. But,
Well, let's face it, we all just were like, oh, we're going to use Collector now? Cool. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really how we all started. There wasn't any serious organization going on.
so yeah, there's obviously some users I need to get rid of, just because they don't work here anymore. But yeah, so there's a lot of, so if you're out there in the audience feeling bad about, the way your ArcGIS Online looks, like we're all in the same boat, I think. But I try to, I don't know if I would go with Micah's like numbering. I don't know if that works. I think we're mostly departmental. I know that I might just eat my words and regret that decision later, but that's just the way I'm going right now. It's hard to predict the future, I guess. One thing too, since I have some data, let me go to conservation real quick. I know if I do make a view, I try to add the underscore view. So like this camping layer, for instance, is just a feature layer that's only on ArcGIS Online. When I make a view, just do underscore view. So that's what, if you know anything about views, you know, it's so that it can't be edited basically, or it's, you know, it's safe to share publicly, I think. So hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, but I don't know. That's kind of a quick overview.
You're correct, Matt.
Okay. This is a good group to, you know, if I'm saying something wrong, let me know. I know Micah won't hold back, so that's good.
I just wanted to note, I seen you had some users disabled, but when somebody leaves the organization, we commonly think, okay, block their login to the computers and the IT network and all that. But I hope folks remember your GIS users. ArcGIS Online is available from their home. So either change their password or disable their login in online, because technically they can still get in because it's not on your network.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well.
A quick question about views. So those views are not the same as like a database view.
I think it has a lot of similarities between a database view. Well,
So you could do joins and relates and just
no,
display the.
you're right. I think it's just, I don't know. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I create a view, it's just the exact same data. It's just the permissions are not.
So
It cannot be edited.
So
Yeah, I think
Lawrence,
it's slightly different.
I'll interject here a little bit because I've been playing a lot with views recently, on our enterprise and on our AGO cloud. My name's Greg with the City of Grimes. So with the views, you can specify what layers. So if you have say a feature layer that's published with sub layers within it, you could say only view this. Say you have a water network, and you can say only view the fire hydrants and what attributes. That's the level of detail you can get to when you set up views, and you can set up if they have editing privileges on some things per field name compared to others. So there's a lot of customization, a lot of power behind it, but it takes a lot of thought to pick and choose what is needed.
And
Thank
it's
you.
only available on hosted layers.
Right. Makes sense.
We use it just strictly if we have a layer that we make edits on, and then so what's the public can view, they just go to the view layer in order to see it while we still can edit it on the back end, and it's simultaneous to, you know, viewing of that.
I think that's about it too. So I'll just quickly note on one thing. We also have REST services that I also just add those to ArcGIS Online so they can kind of all be in one nice tidy place. That's my goal, is to have a one-stop shop for any layers. I'm not near getting there yet, but that'd be a nice goal, I guess. So but anyway, I'll stop sharing. If anybody has any questions, that's fine, but I'll make sure that Josh, you have some time to talk too.
All right, so I'm going to expand on a couple things that Patrick mentioned and that John mentioned. And just so you know what we deal with here, When John said functionally unlimited, yes, that is 4.5 million credits that we have available through August still. And we have 2,200 members. Honestly, any of the tags for items or users or groups, we don't utilize that because we essentially have given everybody permissions. So we have 340 groups currently now. And so for new member, we always set everybody to the same user type and the same role. We give everybody licenses. One thing that we do though is we have a custom role that we end up giving everybody because we want everybody to at least, everybody's kind of collaborating between groups and classes. And so we wanted to give them the ability to use update capabilities in their groups. However, that is an administrator privilege. And so anything that utilizes an administrative privilege cannot be used as a default role. And so we give everybody just a regular one that we had created before those shared update groups came about. We give them that role, and then we actually run a notebook, and that is all the lines that we run. We run that every hour to go ahead and change all new users to the proper role that has that shared update group. Another thing to keep an eye out for is we also use Okta, which is, the enterprise login system that ISU uses. And when you go to, sometimes when you try to use the Python API, you can't utilize your username that utilizes Okta because or possibly other of the SSL options, because you don't have the way within the script to go about through their system. And so you actually, even though we have all these users that use the enterprise login, we have, there's maybe one or two, one's mine, and there might be one or two others, of just strictly a non-SSL login that is used strictly for the API. And that account actually cannot be logged into any way other than the API code, because our organization set up to only allow logins via that SSL, and since there isn't one, that account can't be logged into. Patrick mentioned the GeoJob tools, which is this admin tools for ArcGIS Online. I use that a lot also. I mainly use it just to get a name of all the users that are in there and the last time they logged in. Because when you have 2,200 users, it doesn't work to scroll through and all the other stuff. So we utilize that with removing users. Technically, best practice is for education is not to remove users because of the amount of credits that we have. However, one thing we noticed was where it says featured data store, we only get 150 gigabytes worth of feature layer storage. And now we have 26 gigabytes available. We did not know that this was a thing. And at the beginning of the school year back in September, we were actually showing negative 30 gigabytes available. And so we changed our process as to how we remove users. And we remove users because since it is a enterprise login through ISU's system, when they leave the university, faculty and staff, like the day after they leave the university, their login stuff is shut off. So they cannot log in through Okta. Students, it's roughly 6 months to a year, depending on when they graduate. And so we have set up a process that we go in and manually check their last day of login and when items have been accessed, because someone from the University of Michigan had some code that showed, or that was able to be, shows how the API to be utilized to figure out when last time something was accessed. And we go ahead and remove items for that people can't get to because they're shared just with the individual. Well, that individual hasn't been around for 3 years and they can't log in because they don't have an account anymore. And so it just kind of frees up some space. But yeah, so even though we have all those credits, we do set the credit allocation just because, like John and Patrick said, we've run into people who don't realize that anything uses credits. And one of the one of the intro GIS classes utilizes ArcGIS Online a lot. And so that's why we've kind of gone ahead and just kind of left everything more open. But we left those credits in there just because you don't want to go ahead and just let free reins on the credits. It just doesn't work. So if somebody hits that, we get notified and then we go ahead and contact them to figure out if we need to up their credits or if there's some other way that they need to go ahead and do those things. So and then other than that, I don't think I have a whole lot else, but it was more just administrative stuff and how we do things around here. Yeah, we don't really touch items or groups or anything just because there's too much it's too many people to deal with. So any questions on any of that?
No, I
Yeah,
pity
I've
you
talked
though.
fast.
That's a lot of users.
Yeah, no, it's a completely different beast than what everybody probably has to deal with. But we want anybody, of those 2,200, how many actually truly use it?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, that's
I
what
mean,
I
we've got
check too. I keep on weeding out our non-users. Like if they have not been active in over a year, I contact them if I don't hear back, which is usually the case because they're too embarrassed to tell me that they haven't been using it, even though they begged me for an account. I just delete them. So
yeah, and it's just with with it being used for classes and everything, it just
Yep.
didn't work out. And the biggest thing was when we transitioned to the Okta system from the public logins, which is so much easier because the public ones we'd have to ask the professors before and then get a list of the students, create the names and everything.
Yep.
The API wasn't, at that time that we made that transition, wasn't doing a whole lot. So it was a lot of manual work to get everything moved over. And we had a process to get that figured out. It was a lot of emails to people saying, eventually we're going to get rid of it because it's taken you 2 years to try to do this.
yeah.
And
Is
so
Okta more for like users or organizations that have like a ton of users?
think of it just as it's just a single sign-on, the
Yep.
multi-factor stuff. That's all it is. It's
It's
a
like
multi-factor.
it's LDAP, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could be using some sort of, gotta remember what some of those other ones are.
And actually, I believe ArcGIS Online itself actually uses Okta.
But yeah, there's others that are connected to like the Active Directory that the IT has, but that's just what ISU has as Okta. And actually,
Okay, thanks.
and I'm not sure
Um,
if it says in here other options.
Yeah, there are other OAuth 2. I think this is just
Yeah, I'm not going to click on that because I don't know what's all it shows. So,
So, but getting back to your ArcGIS Online programming thing, take a look at that. I have to get back to this anyways, but I'll get back to you if I get to it first. But of creating and using the client ID, which is basically an API key against your user, for the ArcGIS Online Python stuff. But I'll play around with that and I'll get back to you.
Do you know, does that entail needing permissions from
No, you
Active
just
Directory, or?
no. It's basically the way that you can give permission to another application outside of your organization, permission to your service or services. And it uses an API key rather than your login. But because you set it from your login, you explicitly give it permission to use that those resources. And that's the way that things like FME server, you can set that up to give an API key so that if you have a username that times out, you have to reset your password every 6 months. So you don't have to worry so much about the username and password. So, but I'll get back to you on that because I had to research it too. So
Works for me. But I would advise people to look at that admin tools for ArcGIS Online, because there's a lot of, even under the basic, I mean, you can pay for something more, but even the basic tools, user tools, the item tools, there's a lot of stuff that you can do in there that is very helpful, because you can change permissions on all the content for individual people. We do it a lot. I use it a lot for removing delete protection when I go to remove items out of the organization.
How do you get to those again, real quick? Sorry, Josh.
For which part?
Just like the admin tools you're talking about.
So if I posted a link earlier.
if you go to Marketplace, is probably the easiest way. Up in
Yeah,
the,
it's from the Marketplace.
Oh yeah,
and then,
that's right. Okay.
And then you
Gotcha.
you have to actually add it, and then you have to give it permissions to connect to your ArcGIS online organization. Yes, let me. You had asked about. There's some other options. So there's, if you're looking at ArcGIS Online, in the help guides, here's some of the other ones that you might see as the single sign-on stuff. So Okta is just one, but Shibboleth and ADFS and just those are just some of them.
So basically, this is just saving someone from logging in like one more time or something, or I mean.
Essentially, it's just so that they don't have to remember password. They just, whatever they would use to log into their county computer, then that's the same username.
Kind of like
password they use.
offloading user management to your IT is really what it's doing. So instead of you managing the username and password for the online organization, it's being offloaded to whoever is managing your Active Directory.
Yeah.
And
It's so much nicer.
I understand that. I just don't. Is it like, yeah. I just don't know if I want to jump into that if it's a lot of work, but because I don't. I mean, people can remember one more password. But
no,
I get it.
see, that's
Yes,
the beauty of it is that. So I had to give it to the chief technology officer. I used to give him every time he set something up that he wanted to look at first, it had to be a new username and password or reset his password because he could never remember it. Now he can just use his existing state of Iowa account to log in. It makes it a lot easier.
There is some setup that has to be done on the, on those servers that control the Active Directory, the directory.
I think we have Active Directory here. That's why I was wondering if we have to like work with our IT department for.
Yes, there is some work that would have to be done. Because you do have to there's certain information that they would have to provide that you add into ArcGIS Online into the settings so that they're able to talk to each other.
Gotcha.
But so there is a little bit of work that is done, but it makes things so much easier.
Yeah. Yep.
Because then you're not having to deal with providing people with usernames and passwords.
Yeah, see, that's what happened here. Is like, when I first started with ArcGIS Online, it was just me, one user with one password, and then there's 3 users, and then 5 users, and then I just kept, just add another one. Now we have up to 30, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe we need to do something because it is. I know we all have usernames and passwords in like every part of our life now. It seems like, but taking away one and making things a lot streamlined, I could see the benefit of that. So thanks.
Yeah, and honestly, there's people that forget to, when you go to sign in, you have to change it from a public online login to the enterprise, your organization's login. You put in the link, and we've got a lot of people that forget to do that. And so then they email me saying that they need their password reset. And it's just like, well, there's nothing to reset. You just need to remember to log in this way. So Micah had to step away. So if is there any other questions from anybody that's still around? If you have any questions that you want to ask offhand, go ahead and please email me. Be willing to help you get some stuff set up if that's what you would like.
Yep, and I can help out too if Josh can't. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
I mean, no, like the tags and all that stuff. There's no way I'd be able to help with that stuff. So it's, people do different things. All right, if there's nothing else, I believe there's a lunch and learn for May. Yes, May 18th. I don't know what the topic is, so look for an email from Micah on that. We do have our quarterly meeting for IGIC next Wednesday. So reminder that it's not just for board members. So if you want to show up, that's fine. Look for more information on that coming out. And Joseph, you had something.
I just have a small thing. Thanks for this. This was very helpful. And as I work with educators in particular, we're always telling them and students exactly what you folks are saying. Be organized. GIS is already complicated enough, despite the evolution of it. And if you're not organized, you're just making things more difficult for yourself. I did ask our development team over here about the subfolders. That comes up a lot, and I personally would love it as well. I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know why it's still in the future, but it's not quite there yet.
I looked it up and it's not there yet either. I thought it had been. I was mixing it up with the categories, and you can do nested group type things. So, the other thing I would recommend to people, if you haven't within your organization, is create a hub site, because they're free if you have an organizational account. Make it only available to your organization, and put some of these things like the organizational stuff, create an internal, instead of, like, one of the big things we have at the state is everybody thinks that they need to create their own county data set because that's what the first thing that somebody wants, leadership wants is, well, we want to show that map, but why aren't the counties on there? And so we just create common data sets that are shareable, but that requires some education to say, hey, search within your organization for this data set. It's already pre-labeled, set so that you can lay over on top of everything. But having, one of the things I've started to do internally is create a hub site that is just for users of the state of Iowa, not exposed to anyone else. And then they can find some of these resources or a description of, well, what's that relationship again between feature layer, map, and applications? Or I'm looking for a particular type of application or really good examples. You can create a gallery from there that demonstrate other things within your organization or other resources as well. And so I would take advantage of that and it's not necessarily directly towards our organization, but it definitely is a way for you to communicate that and have some people help themselves.
Patrick, since I'm super lazy right now, I just want to ask you, since you're here,
Mhm.
can you, from that hub site that you just were talking about, that's just, only open to your organization, can you
Mhm.
add directly from that to ArcGIS Pro?
It's so basically that relationship is that when you publish things, they can show up there. because you can set up a group that is basically like a gallery group, and anything that you put in there and share to that particular group can then end up on your site from a content perspective. And so that's the if you haven't done that, just set up a internal open data. You could create an open data site and share it out internally to say, hey, here's this, I'm looking for this. And then you can put things like different widgets in there. One of them might be a gallery page, and you can share all that content then to that particular gallery page. Or that gallery widget then within there. There's a lot of ways to organize that stuff, and a lot of really things you can do, but you really need to understand that relationship. The hub sites work based on those principles of sharing to different groups.
I'm just thinking, like, if someone isn't pro, they're working along, they have a bunch of layers in there already. They're, bebopping along, doing their thing. And then they just want to, like, oh, I want Boone County parcels or something. I need to add that to my map. Can I go to the hub site? And then,
No, you could not necessarily to the hub site, but that same group that you've shared out to be on the hub site, you can then, that group can be if they go to, like, we have a shared content. So if you just go to that shared content group, everything that's in that shared content group will show up in ArcGIS Pro.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you guys, what I learned today is that ArcGIS Online is not a set it and forget it kind of software. It has been evolving much faster than I have been paying attention. I read the little things that come out and I go, yeah, there's a lot more that we could do with it. But of course, since I have 17 other hats to wear, we're just getting along with the basics.
Yeah, and they put out the stuff monthly or whatever that when they do the updates, and it's take a look at those, even though 90% of the stuff doesn't pertain to you.
I read through them. I'm constantly impressed and wishing I had some time for implementation.
That transfer content was in there this last time, and I went, well,
yeah, I tried it.
Our process is so convoluted before to try to do that this is perfect now.
I tried to do a quick capture from ArcGIS Online to my portal, and it it wasn't ready for that yet. But that's been a couple months ago, so maybe it is now. Sometimes I try it out too soon before they've got the bugs worked out.
Oh, and I remembered what the May Lunch and Learn is going to be on community maps and how you can contribute to community maps.
Excellent. This was great, guys. I have to thank everyone who showed up and participated and contributed in any way, and those of us who sat here and learned.
I learned a lot. I was one of the panel. I think I learned more.
I know.
I shared, maybe. I don't know if that's possible.
That's the way it goes. Okay, should we call it?
Yep.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
I still have a job, so I should get back to it.